In programming, data type is an important concept. We saw in previous episode that variables can store different type of data in different type of containers. It's because each type has its own particularities. But what is that for? It's quite simple. To help Pyto find infos quicker, read faster, handle and carry data to better navigate, it classifies, sorts, arrange, organize them by type. So basically, data types are just categories to simplify things for Pyto, help him read and interpret data that you'd want him to interact with in a quicker way. There are 4 main cats in Python. Let's have a quick look. First, text type, called strings. To go faster, we use the abbreviation str in Python. That's what we saw in the previous episode with the string variable name equals quote Pyto quote. As you can see, strings are sequences of characters and may be delimited using either single or double quotes. For example, name equals quote double quote Pyto double quote, or name equals symbol quote Pyto symbol quote. All the characters between the opening and the matching closing delimiters are part of the string. As long as it's surrounded by those delimiters, you can put whatever character you want, numbers, symbol, punctuation, and so on. So to illustrate that, let's create a variable called PytoBody, in which we're going to put I've got one tail. Or another example, we're going to call a variable name myText, and we're going to put whatever we want in it. Strings in Python can contain as many characters as you wish. The only limit is Python's memory, which is huge. You remember? You're probably wondering, what if I have a quote in my text? What you have to do if you have a quote is use an escape sequence with the backslash. And as you can see, the quote turned into another color and your string is a valid one. And one last thing about the string, it can also be empty. For example, text equal quote quote. And obviously you can fill it later by redeclaring the variable. The second main type or categories include numbers. There are 3 numeric types in Python: integers, float, and complex. We will just focus on the first 2, integers and float, in this episode, because, as its name suggests, complex are more complex. As every variable, variables of numeric types are created when you assign value to them and can be empty. So let's start with integers. Integers, or int, is a whole number, positive or negative, without decimals. There is no limit how long an integer value can be. Of course, it is still constrained by the amount of memory Pyto has. But beyond that, an integer can be as long as you need it to be. Let's take for example the variable age equals 5, or x equals 1, or number equals . It can also be a negative number, like so. You just have to put a minus sign in front of it. All those are integers variable. Now, let's talk about float. Float, or floating point number, is quite the same as integers, except that it contains 1 or more decimals with no length limitation. If you don't get it, don't worry. We'll see an example. Let's take the size variable, for example, that we created in the previous episode. So, size equal 1.30. The character that separates whole number and decimals is, by convention, a dot. Let's see some few more examples to illustrate that. That's it for the number types category. Third type is the Boolean data type. Boolean type is quite handy when you need a simple binary variable. It is either true or false, and so in Python, Boolean variables are defined by the true and false keywords. Let's say we want to create a variable to specify if Pyto is a snake or if it is a cat. So, snake equal true, because Pyto is a snake, and cat equal false. It is not, obviously. Note the keywords true and false must have an uppercase first letter. Using a lowercase true returns an error. Basically, collections are variables that can contain multiple values. They are like bag or suitcase if you want. And because we want to do different things with the item inside the bag, which are the values, we use three main types of collection that have different qualities and usage. Let's have a quick overview on these three types of collections. To distinguish them, we use different bracket types. You can picture that as a suitcase handle. First, tuple, written with round brackets, is a collection or data ordered and unchangeable. For example, let's create a variable called Pytoinfo in which we're going to put all the variables previously created. So Pytoinfo equals bracket Pyto 5 1.30 and true, and we close the bracket. As you can see, all the values are separated by a comma. Second, lists, created using square brackets, where items are ordered, changeable, and allow duplicate values. Let's take for example the variable PytoSpec equal square bracket Pyto, 5, 1.30, true, 5. And we close it with a square bracket. As you can see, 5 is inserted 2 times in the variable, and we can also change the position of the values. Third type of collection is dictionaries. They are used to store data values in key value pairs. They are written with curly brackets, and values are unordered, changeable, and does not allow duplicates. Let's create, for example, a variable called Pyto data in which we're going to put the name, the age, the height, and if it's a snake or not. As you can see, each key value pairs are separated by the colon mark. And now, I'm going to show you something even more amazing. We can put collections in collections. We're going to show an example by creating a list and then putting inside 3 tuples. So let's get started. When I call the list my list equal open the bracket the first tuple with 1, comma, tuple 1, comma, the second tuple 2, comma, tuple 2, close the bracket, comma, and the third with 3, comma, third tuple, close the bracket, and we close the bracket of my list. So it's like putting 3 little suitcases in a big one. See how crazy it is? So throughout these examples, we saw that data values of collection can be of any type: string, integers, float, boolean. It can even contain collection of collections. So instead of asking Pyto to carry 4 variables, we can ask him to carry one containing the others. It's like a bag where you put stuff in it. And there is no limit to how many values you can store in a collection variable. It's quite handy, huh? That's it for data type presentation. Don't worry if you don't remember all of it. We will cover it as we go along the course of this class. So, now we know what is the data type and how to recognize it. But what if I want to check a variable data type in the code? It's very easy. You can get the data type of a variable with the type, function, or command. So, for example, we're going to check what is the type of the size variable that we've created earlier. So to do that, rewrite print. Do you remember we use it to see in the console what we want in the result? So print, we open the bracket, type, open the bracket, the name of the variable, which is size, we close the bracket of the type, and we close the bracket of the print. We just have to run the program and see what it shows in the console. And what appears in the console is class float, which is good. So let's try another one. We're going to check what is the type of the Pyto data variable that we've created. So let's do it. Print, bracket, type, bracket, Pyto data, close the bracket, and close the bracket. If we run the program and see what's open in the console, we'll see class dict, which is the abbreviation of dictionary. So it's perfect. The last thing I want you to be familiar with regarding data type is what we call casting. There may be some times when you want to specify a type onto a variable. If you want to specify the data type of a variable, this can be done like this. We're going to take once again the variable called size that we've created, which is 1.30, and if you remember, it's a float, and we'll say that we want it as a string. So we're going to type size equal str, open the bracket, we have the value, so 1.30, and close the bracket. Now, if we want to check what is the type of the variable, we just have to do like we do earlier. Print, type, the name of the variable, and we run the program. And as it shows up, we have a class str, which is a string, so it's perfect. You can do the same thing with integrals. You have to use ent and bracket, float, list, tuple, dict for dictionaries, set. For the boolean, that's the same, bool and the bracket. And we covered pretty much it. Feel free to create, modify, assign, change the type of the data and the variable that we saw. Create new one, delete ones, and whatever you want. This is how you learn, by mixing by doing your stuff, by putting your hands into it, and by doing mistakes also.